rolling.
It's rolling.
It's rolling.
No turning back now.
No turning back now. No Jodimo. That's all in there.
Hello, Paco.
Hello, Damaris. Good Lord have mercy. What have you gotten me into this time?
It's your fault. This is your doing again.
Again.
This is the second iteration of Beginner's Mind, which I love. I love that it's a conversation between the two of us.
Yeah.
And this is sort of our test. This is our test talk. I think we're always talking, but no one's ever recording. So why not share, that the viewer can be the fly on the wall, right? Into these conversations and different topics. And today...
But this is not like the Kardashians and all that those people don't.
No, they have nothing good to talk about.
They have things to show, okay.
They have nothing good to talk
Okay.
about.
Kardashians, is that what it was?
I have no idea. I don't even watch TV. That's true. So the topic that I think kicks this all off is the topic of new chapters and what that all means. And sometimes chapters are very short and sometimes chapters are very long. And what is it that sort of finally brings a chapter to its conclusion, either as a transition or sort of se acabó,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when a chapter finishes like that without the transition, it's hard to start over the new chapter, right? It's almost like it's the end of the volume,
Right.
So you got to start a new whole book, right? But when a chapter has like a lovely or a more organic transition, you enter into a new physical and mental state with more ease, right? So new chapters is, I think, very fitting, but also people can it's very relatable for anybody to enter into a conversation about new chapters, old chapters, right? You are definitely in a new chapter, in a new location. Your geography has shifted,
Mm-hmm.
and mine will too as well. I've always heard of people, I think mostly in movies or TV, but I've always heard of people who they live where they've always lived, like in the same house or in the same, we've always lived in this town, generation, but that didn't happen to us.
Mm-mm. Not at all.
Yeah. And so how do you feel now? You're in a new location.
So you take the whole idea of chapters, and to me, one could look at chapters in the daily life of any human, and we're talking about me, for instance, just being here over a month and a half, 2 months from New York, after being in New York since I was 8 years old. So that's close to 76 years being in New York, and then all of a sudden, I lived in the metropolitan area, I lived in New Rochelle and stuff like that. I remember being in New Rochelle and going through a very difficult part of my life where I was going through a divorce, and there was all kinds of stresses in my head, as anyone who's gone through a divorce or a separation of kinds. And I went to a friend of mine who was a psychotherapist, and I said, where do I move? And she said, well, you can move anywhere in the world, knowing you. He said, but that's not what we're talking about, moving here within the metropolitan area. He said, your first move should be, if you can do it, close to where you've been living right now. I said, well, why do I want to do that? I said, well, because you know where the laundromat is, You know where the coffee shop is. You know where the da da da. He said, and in terms of reducing your stress, that's your bridge.
Mm.
And once you've gotten over this thing that's going on in your life, then you could maybe move to another place.
Right.
So getting back to here in Delray Beach, where I'm staying right now, living right now with my wife, with your mom. I didn't know where I had to find a new dry cleaner.
Good thing the laundromat's next door in the next
The
room.
laundromat is here, but the dry cleaner. So I put the clothes in the dry cleaner. I went with your mom, and then I went back to New York because I was still living in New York. And I said, by the way, did you get my stuff out of the dry cleaner? She said, I can't find a dry cleaner.
Oops.
So she said, do you remember which dry cleaner we put it in? It happens to be that I kind of have learned from experience. So I took a picture of the outside of the dry cleaner.
Well
But
done.
other than that, I didn't remember what the heck it was. So I hit my button and I found it, and so I was able to get my shirts out.
Yeah, people take that for granted. They don't,
They don't- they do.
there's
They
a
do.
comfort, obviously,
I mean,
in knowing
in-
where everything is.
In New York City for the last 25 years, I had I want to say it's Deanna's Pizza in New Rochelle.
Mm.
So that goes back. So my son is 37 years old. So I've been going to Deanna's Pizza for 37 years. And the same owner, so I know him from 37 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I moved here, and where's Deanna's
Where's
Pizza?
the pizza shop?
Where's the pizza shop? So I'm driving around, and about 5 minutes from here, I see Jack's Pizza, New York. And I go, whoa.
You were like,
I went in there, and I said, by the way, do you do it by the slice? He says, oh yeah, we'll make it just for you. So I said, how about giving me a vegetable pizza? He said, what would you like on it? I said, throw the kitchen sink in it. He said, you're a New Yorker, bro. And he did. So it's those kinds of things that, so I'm beginning to become more comfortable, but that's a chapter. That's a kind of chapter.
yeah.
And then in the esoteric part of my life, the spiritual side of my life, which at this point, since I was born in 1939, I've been hanging around for a little while here. It's more like there's a Zen koan, and in Buddhism and in Zen, a koan is like a riddle that the teacher gives you, in which there really is never an answer. You cannot find an answer to the riddle. The only way that you can get to the riddle, if you can, is to experience the riddle. And they go back, 1,500 years or more, even when the Buddha was around, probably. And so there's a Chinese Chi Su Wang, who did a koan called Stepping Off the 180-foot Pole. That's a chapter. That's a chapter. So that's a koan. So you give that to your students. What does it mean to step off a 108-foot pole? So students give you all kinds of answers. But in terms of our discussion, you step off that 108-foot pole pretty much all your whole life. Pretty much every day of your life. So there was another teacher by the name of Thich Nhat Hanh who recently died last year or 2 years ago.
Yeah.
A Vietnamese Zen teacher, who was nominated to get the Nobel Prize by Martin Luther King.
Mm-hmm.
And he wrote a book called Peace is Every Step. So the moment you're on the 108-foot pole, it could be a disaster, it could be a tragedy, it could be that it's a peaceful step. But the next step couldn't happen without that step. So you continue that rotation. And so you begin to realize that chapters could be momentarily. you can have chapters of your life all the time. Now, most of us, including me, don't live in that world. I can understand it intellectually. I've experienced it in my practice because I have a long practice. But I live in a world where chapters are you're 85 years old, bro. You don't have a company anymore. You don't have your buildings anymore, and you still have to have cash flow on a monthly basis. What do? Well, one of the things that you do is that you reinvent yourself. And I've reinvented myself many, many, many times in the past. And this is what we're doing right now. We're going through a chapter in which we are reinventing ourselves. And well, you talk about how you're reinventing yourself because you're going through having your own company and stuff like that. So
a lot of how big is the pole?
180-foot pole.
A lot of 180-foot poles. A lot of 180-foot poles. Yeah, that's definitely about trust. That's definitely about trust. The 180-foot pole for me is the expanse of the thing, the gravity of the thing, whatever the thing is, right? But you also talked about being in the moment, not, we project forward, so we're standing on the pole and we're already projecting, we're already saying, as soon as I step off, I'm gonna crack my skull. Yeah. I can't step off because blah, 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 blah. I can't step off because I'm, et cetera, et cetera. So deciding to close my company was one of those moments, opening the company obviously was one of those moments, and I'm in one of those moments now too, where I'm in a transition. My daughter's already out in the world working. My son is graduating from high school. I want to move. I want to, move to another location close to here. I want to start generating my income through my personal work, right? Mm-hmm. And that takes courage, but it also takes the ability to trust, because my experience is there. There's no guesswork, and the energy that I put, the work that I put into facilitating things for others, I do that every day, mm-hmm. Right? So why can't I do that for myself?
Yeah. And the answer to that is obviously you've done it before. The answer to that is you can do it. The answer to that is you're not as young as you used to be, mm-hmm. although you're a baby compared to me. And so when you talk about courage, it takes a type of courage. More important for me, it takes a kind of a mindset. It's a mindset that is able to live in a space that I call soft ground, mm-hmm. because there's no solidity.
Right.
So someone like you, or of all my students that I have, people like you who are artists tend to be able to make those transitions easier. Not easy. None of this is easy. None of this is without pain. And the reason is, in my opinion, that if you're an artist, you have to live in a space of not knowing. You have to live in a space of uncertainty. You live in a space of soft ground. Mm-hmm. If you are an expert or something, and you are in solid ground, you know, the only thing you know is how not to do it, as opposed to not knowing where everything is possible. Everything is possible. So yeah, yeah, I'm going through the same thing, and in many ways, you know, I consider myself to have an artist mentality, both because of my previous life and then my life as a Zen Buddhist teacher. Um, you know, and I was very comfortable. I was very comfortable with the three tenets that we have in our order, which is not knowing, bearing witness, and action. So that not knowing allows you to then be present to what's emerging. You know, you're doing a choreography, you're doing a dance. There are three people in the thing. You have already choreographed in your mind what this sequence should look like, and all of a sudden you see something that you didn't see before. So the choreography just changed in your mind. I mean, that's the way I live my life. And so when he said not knowing and bearing witness, I saw it in that form. And then, of course, action, because it has to be able to have action in my work. You have to move.
I think that's the thing that makes me most passionate about teaching, is that I'm teaching my students to enter the unknown, right? And to trust in this movement, that it's going to take them fluidly into the next one, but they need to get out of their own way.
Absolutely.
I'm witnessing, right, the first few weeks of their suffering, and I let them. And then there's this beautiful moment where they got it. Like they're finally in a micro focus or a deep focus, and they're starting to get more and more out of their own way. In class, I say, evict the annoying roommate. They have this annoying roommate who's always, no, it's not like that. You know, like the judging and the, right?
The judging, yeah.
And so, you know, we
Your
refer
that
to
negative
the,
voice.
right,
Yeah.
so we refer to that we are working on the eviction of the annoying roommate. But how beautiful the moment where each student, because everybody arrives at a different time, gets to that place of understanding the connections and trusting, not worried about what they look like, not worried about whether they are in sync with somebody else, not worried about the voices and the voices are gone, not worried about, you know, just in a place of enjoying and going for a ride, right? Just go for the ride. Easier said than done. These are things that are very difficult. You know, we teach them, but we also have to apply them to ourselves.
That's sometimes the hardest
We
part.
have to apply them to
That's
ourselves.
the hardest part.
Right. So I love seeing it in them because it also is an affirmation of, okay, I need to make sure that I'm also letting the flow of things lead me to the next, right? Evicting the annoying roommate and going for a beautiful ride.
Yeah, Suzuki Roshi, who was the founder probably 30, 40 years ago of the San Francisco Zen Center, was the one that wrote a book called Beginner's Mind, for Zen. And it's a book, you can get it on Amazon. It's called Beginner's Mind, Suzuki Roshi. And he talked about the freedom that you see a child, when children are playing, when children are moving around a certain age, before they get messed up by the adults or by this educational system. When they're still children, there's a fluidity. There's a fluidity, and there is a joy of music and movement, and you see in kids. And he said, that's what we have to have a joyous and a happy and a free life, full of compassion and love. He said it's difficult to do because we've already been polluted by the you cannot do it, or you're not good enough, or whatever it is
It's
that
educated out of us.
they educate that right out of you. And he says, he said, I'm not talking about the naivete of a child, because you don't want that, but you're talking about that freedom and that fluidity, and you described it very well with your students, and you see it with children, take a child when they're walking, to learn how to walk. How many times they get up and they drop, boom, get up, boom, and they keep trying, boom, and then they found out that they could hold on to something, and they hold on to something, and boom, and boom, and boom. It happens, I don't know, 100 freaking times for a little kid. It happens day after day, and then one day you hear the screamings of somebody, he or she is walking, and then you look at that baby's face, and it's like this. Sucker, I did it. I did it. I did it. We lose that. We lose that. We lose that.
Yeah.
We lose that. Noemi and I took a class in Corpalo once, and we took a class on somatics, the body, which people like you study
Of
over
the body.
and over.
Yep.
So what I did not realize, although I probably did know it from my biology class, but made your attention, is that we still have the remnants of a tail, all of us. It's called the coccyx nerve, right? And so the class said that if you look at a child, the child that we described, the one that hasn't been polluted yet, and you see them, a lot of times when they see you, particularly if you're an uncle or an auntie or a cousin or a brother or a mother or a father, and they see you, they go like this, they open their arms and they run. They run to you like this, da 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 da. The coccyx nerve goes up, goes up. It said in the class that by the age of 7, it's frozen chronically. It doesn't move anymore. But by 7, we've driven that possibility out, But chapters are very important in our lives, and we're constantly either taking it from an esoteric point of view, on a moment-to-moment basis, we're doing chapters, or we're doing chapters chronologically because we're moving to a different place, because we're a different age, or because we just want to change. The interesting thing about chapters is that chapters can be painful, and they could be scary. They could be scary. In business, what they're talking about now in the current conversations that are being had is that up to now, pretty much up to the last, maybe not now, but up to the last, let's call it 5-10 years, when this thing has begun, we've been operating in what they call a 2x speed, and very successful. Fortune 500 companies, 2x's, and some of the description that they talk about is that in 2x, 80% of your effort creates 20% of your results. You want more results? You work harder. You hire more employees. You put more capital in. 80% great. You want to do it? Keep building the 80% up, whatever it is. In this new world of technology, robotics, neurotechnology, all the stuff that we're seeing, AI, GPT, quantum physics, quantum computing, all these things that we're going to, this stuff is flipping. It's flipping. So that 20% of your effort creates 80% of the results. So Instagram sold to Facebook in 96, 97 for $2.3 billion. They had only been in place for something like 18 months, and they had 13 employees.
Right.
It is projected right now that the next billionaire could be 1 or 2 people or 3 people, and they could be the next Amazon. So now we're living in a place where you and I are exploring, what is our 10x move for us in this world, and so this is a great conversation about chapters, and it's a great conversation because it takes us to to a lot of places that we could look at a later transmission, because I know that I'm still being held back by some of my own mindsets, some of my own belief systems, some of my thinking. I try to overcome that. And people say, oh man, you're so different. You don't sound like an 85-year-old. You don't look like an 85-year-old. My God. By the way, I went into the machine in the gym the other day. They have this big machine at the YMCA where I go. And it tells you what your chronology age is, because it's my age, because I have my age, but what your actual age according to the machine is. And they had me at 72. If you think that was bragging, it is. And Muhammad used to say, if you could do it, it ain't bragging.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So anyway, good conversation.
Yep. Next chapter.
Yep.
More conversations ahead, and
Yeah. And in the future, we probably will probably, since we're in charge of this process, we probably can start with a beginning meditation at the beginning, a minute or so, just a moment of silence, just so we can center ourselves from wherever we are, wherever we're watching this, and we continue the practice, because the practice is about being present, which a lot of us have difficult doing. And then we probably can end with Damaris is a great singer, so
not.
But we could end up with something to close.
We'll bring a ukulele.
Thank you. Be well. Be blessed.
Bendiciones.
Enjoy yourself, and remember, keep dancing, keep smiling, have a lot of fun, because if you don't laugh a lot, you miss the whole thing. Show's over.